Yuna stared at the small device in her hand. The bond meter had been her most trusted tool for 10 years. She knew every beep, every flash, every reading it could possibly give. Today, it was doing something she had never seen before. The device was glowing. Not the usual soft blue glow that meant a normal reading. This was bright, almost blinding white light that made her purple skin look pale. The numbers on the screen kept climbing: 70%, 80%, 90%, 97%. Yuna looked up at the human standing in front of her. His name was Taeyang. He was tall for his species, with dark hair and eyes that seemed curious about everything. He was smiling at her, completely unaware that he had just broken every rule of xenobiology she had ever learned. "Is something wrong?" Taeyang asked. His voice was gentle and concerned. Yuna pulled her hand away from his arm. The bond meter's light faded back to its normal blue. She looked at the device, then at Taeyang, then back at the device. Her 3 hearts were beating faster than they should. "No. Nothing wrong," she lied. "Just a moment. Please." She walked to her desk and sat down. Her legs felt weak. In 10 years of testing thousands of beings from hundreds of species, she had never seen the bond meter read higher than 40%. Most species averaged between 15 and 25% compatibility with each other. That was normal. That was how the galaxy worked. But 97%? That was impossible. Yuna worked at Medical Station Epsilon 7, a huge facility that floated in space between 3 major star systems. Her job was to test new species for compatibility with the rest of the galactic community. The bond meter measured how well 2 different species could understand each other emotionally and psychologically. Low numbers meant they would always be strangers. Higher numbers meant they could work together, maybe even be friendly. But no one bonded deeply across species. That was just a fact of life. Humans were new to space. They had only invented faster than light travel 2 years ago. Most aliens thought they were cute but primitive. They had sent a small delegation to the station for the standard medical and compatibility checks. Yuna was supposed to process them quickly and send them on their way. Now she was holding a device that told her this human was more compatible with her than her own sister. "Dr. Yuna?" Taeyang was still standing there, looking worried. "Are you sure everything is okay?" Yuna forced herself to smile. She had practiced smiling at mirrors to make other species feel comfortable. "Yes. I am fine. The device just needs recalibration. Can you wait outside for a moment?" Taeyang nodded and left the room. As soon as the door closed, Yuna grabbed her communicator and called her assistant. "Bora, come to testing room 3. Immediately." Bora arrived within minutes. She was from the same species as Yuna, with the same purple skin and silver eyes. She looked at Yuna with concern. "What's wrong? You look sick." "Give me your hand," Yuna said, holding up the bond meter. Bora extended her hand. Yuna touched her wrist with the device. It beeped once and showed a reading of 23%. "Normal. Perfectly normal." "The device works fine," Yuna whispered. "It's not broken." "Then what's the problem?" Yuna sat down again. "Bring in the next human. The female one. Her name is Minji." Bora looked confused but did as she was told. She returned with a young human woman who had short black hair and a friendly smile. Minji bowed slightly when she entered, which Yuna had learned was a human gesture of respect. "Hello, Dr. Yuna. Taeyang said you needed to see me?" "Yes, please sit." Yuna's hands were shaking. "I need to do a standard compatibility test. May I touch your hand?" "May I touch your hand?" "Of course." Minji held out her hand. Yuna pressed the bond meter against her palm. The device lit up again, that same brilliant white light. The numbers climbed rapidly. 96%. Yuna felt dizzy. This couldn't be happening. "Wow, that's bright," Minji said, laughing. "Is that normal?" "Very normal." Yuna lied again. "Thank you. You can go now." Over the next hour, Yuna tested all 7 humans in the delegation. Hyun, the pilot, 94%. Keon, the diplomat, 95%. Every single human registered compatibility scores higher than anything she had ever measured. Yuna locked her office door and sat in the dark, thinking. The bond meter didn't lie. It was based on neurological scans and emotional resonance patterns. It measured real, physical compatibility between brains and nervous systems, which meant these humans were actually, genuinely compatible with her species at levels that should be impossible. She thought about the implications. If humans were this compatible with her species, what about others? She grabbed her computer and started searching through the station's database. There were currently representatives from 43 different species on the station. Yuna spent the rest of the day running tests. She invented excuses to briefly touch representatives from different species while holding the bond meter near the humans. She pretended to check air quality. She faked equipment malfunctions. She offered handshakes and greetings. The results were the same every time. Humans showed compatibility ratings between 80 and 97% with every single species she tested. The lizard-like Kreshvan, 88%. The floating gas beings called Wicks, 83%. The crystalline Vexari, 91%. Humans were universally compatible with everyone. Yuna returned to her office after sunset and locked the door. She sat in her chair and stared at the bond meter. This device had defined galactic civilization for 3 centuries. It had proven that deep connection between species was impossible. It had justified the laws and protocols that kept species emotionally separate. And now it was telling her that everything she believed was wrong. She thought about Taeyang's smile. The way Minji had laughed. How Hyun had asked if she needed help carrying equipment. These humans were friendly, open, warm in ways that seemed strange compared to the professional distance most species maintained. Yuna had always felt lonely, though she never had words for it. Everyone did their jobs, followed protocols, and kept appropriate emotional distance. That was civilization. That was order. But when Taeyang had smiled at her, something in her chest had felt lighter, warmer, like a door opening in a room she didn't know was closed. Yuna looked at the bond meter one more time. Its screen showed the last reading, 97%. She thought about what that number meant. Not just compatibility, potential. The potential for real friendship, real understanding, real connection. The potential for everything the galaxy had decided was impossible. Yuna made a decision. She would investigate this. Carefully, quietly, thoroughly. She would learn everything about humans and why they were different. And she would keep this discovery secret until she understood what it meant. Because if the galaxy learned that humans could bond with anyone, everything would change. And Yuna wasn't sure if the galaxy was ready for that change. She wasn't sure if she was ready either. For 3 days, Yuna barely slept. She spent every free moment researching humans. The station's database had basic information about Earth and its history. But it wasn't enough. She needed to understand what made humans different. She started with their biology. Humans were mammals, which meant they gave birth to live young and fed them with milk. That was unusual, but not unique in the galaxy. They were bipedal, with 2 arms and 2 legs. Again, common enough. Their brains were large for their body size, but so were the brains of many intelligent species. Nothing in their basic biology explained the bond meter readings. Then Yuna started reading about human psychology and history. What she found fascinated and horrified her in equal measure. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves, multiple times. Their history was filled with wars, genocides, and conflicts that killed millions. They had invented weapons capable of ending all life on their planet. They had poisoned their air and water. They had divided themselves by skin color, language, religion, and nationality, treating these tiny differences as reasons for hatred. But they had survived. More than survived, they had learned. Yuna read about something humans called empathy. It was the ability to feel what another person felt, to understand their pain and joy as if it was your own. All sentient species had some level of empathy, but humans had developed it to an extraordinary degree. She found studies showing that human brains had special cells called mirror neurons. These cells activated both when humans did something and when they watched someone else do the same thing. It was like their brains couldn't tell the difference between themselves and others. Humans didn't just understand other people. They felt with them. Yuna discovered that humans formed emotional bonds with almost anything. They kept animals as companions and called them family. They named their vehicles and spaceships. They cried over fictional characters and stories. They even felt sorry for robots and artificial intelligences. One report mentioned that humans on Earth had once formed an emotional attachment to a robot on Mars called Opportunity. When the robot stopped working after 14 years, millions of humans mourned it. They wrote poems about it. They drew pictures of it. They genuinely grieved for a machine. Yuna sat back in her chair, amazed. What kind of species mourned a robot? She needed to talk to someone. She called her colleague, Dr. Day. Day was from the Vexari species. His body was made of living crystal that changed colors with his moods. Right now, he was glowing a curious amber color as he entered her office. "You look terrible," Day said. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "Have you been sleeping?" "Not much. Day, I need your help with something. But you have to promise to keep it secret." Day's color shifted to serious blue. "Of course." Yuna showed him the bond meter readings from the humans. She watched his crystal body flash through several colors rapidly. Surprise, confusion, disbelief, then settling on shocked white. "This is impossible," Day said. "I know. But I've tested the device hundreds of times. It's not broken. Then the humans are broken. Or we are. Or everything we know about compatibility is wrong." Yuna pulled up her research on her computer screen. "I think it's the last one. Look at this. Human brains are incredibly adaptable. They call it neuroplasticity. Their brains physically change based on experience and learning." Day leaned closer, his crystal body refracting light across the screen. "All species have some neuroplasticity. Not like this. Humans can learn new languages until they're old. They can completely change their personalities. They can train themselves to feel differently about things. Their brains are always changing, always adapting. And the bond meter measures neurological compatibility," Day said slowly, understanding dawning. "If human brains are that adaptable, they can adapt to match almost any species," Yuna finished. "They don't have one fixed way of thinking or feeling. They can adjust their emotional frequencies to resonate with whoever they're with." Day was quiet for a long moment. His color shifted to thoughtful purple. "That's beautiful. And terrifying." "Why terrifying?" "Because it means they could manipulate anyone. Make anyone trust them. Make anyone love them." Yuna shook her head. "I don't think it works that way. It's not manipulation if it's genuine. The humans aren't pretending to connect. They really do connect. That's just how they are." Over the next week, Yuna spent more time with the human delegation. She told herself it was research. She was studying them, observing them, collecting data. But the truth was, she enjoyed their company. Taeyang invited her to eat lunch with the humans. She accepted, nervous about breaking protocol. Meals were usually eaten alone or with one's own species, but the humans gathered together, sharing food and stories. They laughed constantly. They told jokes that weren't particularly funny, but Yuna found herself laughing anyway. They asked her questions about her life, her family, her interests. Real questions that showed genuine curiosity. Minji told stories about growing up on Earth, about swimming in oceans and climbing mountains. Hyun talked about learning to fly spacecraft, about the thrill of traveling faster than light for the first time. Kian shared his worries about representing humanity well, about making good impressions. They were so open, so vulnerable. They shared fears and dreams and embarrassing moments as easily as they shared food. Yuna realized she was telling them things too. About how she had always wanted to be a doctor. About how lonely the station sometimes felt. About how she missed her family on her home world but felt guilty for missing them because she was supposed to be professional. That's sad, Taeyang said simply. You shouldn't have to choose between being professional and being happy. It was such a human thing to say, simple but profound. After that lunch, Yuna understood something the bond meter couldn't measure. Humans weren't just compatible because of brain chemistry. They were compatible because they tried to be. They worked at understanding others. They asked questions and listened to answers. They shared themselves and invited others to share back. Connection wasn't just biology for humans. It was a skill they had learned over thousands of years of nearly destroying themselves and then choosing not to. Yuna returned to her office and found Day waiting for her. His color was anxious yellow. We have a problem, Day said. Station security noticed you've been spending time with the humans. They asked me about it. They wanted to know if there was a medical concern. Yuna's heart sank. What did you tell them? I said you were conducting extended observations. But Yuna, they're watching now. If you keep this up, they'll investigate. And if they discover what you've discovered, the council will know. Yuna finished. Yes. And I don't think they'll react well. Yuna looked at her bond meter, sitting on her desk. Such a small device to hold such a big secret. Maybe they should know, she said quietly. Maybe everyone should know. We've been wrong about compatibility for centuries. We've been keeping ourselves isolated and lonely because we thought connection was impossible. But it's not. The humans prove it's not. Day's color shifted to worried red. Or maybe the humans prove that connection is dangerous. Maybe that's why the galaxy evolved to keep emotional distance. For safety. Safety from what? From being hurt. From losing control. From caring too much about others, and suffering when they suffer. Yuna thought about Taeyang's smile, about Minji's laugh, about the warmth she had felt during that lunch. Maybe that risk is worth it, she said. Day was quiet for a long time. Finally, his color settled to uncertain gray. Maybe. But that's not a decision we get to make alone. This affects everyone. Yuna knew he was right. But she also knew that some discoveries couldn't be kept secret forever. The truth about humans and their impossible compatibility would come out eventually. She just hoped the galaxy would be ready when it did. I need to present my findings to the medical council, Yuna said. Officially. Before rumors spread and make everything worse. Are you sure? Once you tell them, there's no taking it back. Yuna picked up the bond meter. She remembered the first time it lit up, bright and impossible, in her hand. I'm sure, she said. The truth matters, even when it's uncomfortable. The Galactic Medical Council chamber was a vast circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. Representatives from 20 different species sat watching Yuna as she stood at the center, feeling very small. She held the bond meter in her hand. Her prepared speech felt inadequate now that she was actually here. Ambassador Sora sat in the highest seat. She was Kreshvan, a species of tall reptilian beings known for their logical minds and strict adherence to protocol. Her scales were deep green, and her eyes were sharp as she watched Yuna. Dr. Yuna, Sora's voice echoed in the chamber. You have requested this emergency session to present findings about the human delegation. Please proceed. Yuna activated the large display screen behind her. Charts and graphs appeared, showing the bond meter readings from every test she had conducted. For 10 years, I have used the bond meter to test compatibility between species. The highest recorded compatibility between different species has been 42%. The average is 21%. These numbers have defined how we understand interspecies relations. She paused, her hands shaking slightly. 3 weeks ago, I tested the human delegation. Every human tested showed compatibility ratings between 80 and 97% with multiple species, including my own. The chamber erupted in noise. Council members spoke over each other in a dozen different languages. Ambassador Sora raised her hand for silence. That's impossible, said Councilmember Wicks, a being made of contained gas floating in a translucent sphere. The bond meter has been proven accurate for 300 years. I thought so too, Yuna said. I tested the device repeatedly. It's not malfunctioning. I tested humans with 43 different species present on this station. The results are consistent. Humans are universally compatible with everyone. Another council member, a insect-like being named Vask, clicked his mandibles rapidly. This must be some kind of human trick. Perhaps they can manipulate the device. I considered that possibility, Yuna said. She displayed more data on the screen. But the bond meter doesn't just measure surface responses. It scans neurological patterns and emotional resonance at a quantum level. It cannot be fooled or manipulated. Then what is your explanation? Ambassador Sora asked. Her voice was cold and controlled. Yuna took a deep breath. Humans evolved differently from most spacefaring species. Their history is marked by extreme conflict and near-extinction events. To survive, they developed extraordinary empathy and adaptability. Their brains are more flexible than ours. They can adjust their emotional and psychological patterns to match almost any sentient species. She pulled up images of human history. They call it neuroplasticity. Their brains physically change based on experience and social interaction. When humans meet someone new, their brains automatically start finding ways to understand and connect with that person. It's not conscious manipulation. It's just how they evolved. Day, sitting in the observer section, activated his communication crystal. His voice joined the discussion. I have reviewed Dr. Yuna's research. Her conclusions are sound. Humans appear to have evolved as natural bridge builders between different groups. Their survival depended on their ability to form alliances and understand others. Ambassador Sora leaned forward. If what you say is true, then humans pose a significant risk to galactic stability. A species capable of forming deep bonds with anyone could infiltrate our governments, our militaries, our families. They could manipulate us emotionally in ways we cannot detect or resist. With respect, Ambassador, Yuna said. That's not what the data suggests. Humans aren't trying to manipulate anyone. They simply connect naturally. And connection isn't the same as control. A council member from the Jal species, known for their paranoia, spoke up. How do you know? How can we trust your judgment when you've clearly formed an emotional attachment to these humans yourself? The chamber went quiet. Everyone was looking at Yuna. It's true, Yuna said quietly. I have become friends with some of the humans, and that friendship has not made me vulnerable or weak. It has made me happier. It has made me more creative in my work. It has made me feel less alone. She looked around the chamber at all the different species represented. We have built a civilization on the principle that deep connection between species is impossible. We maintain professional distance. We follow strict protocols. We keep ourselves emotionally separate because we believed we had no choice. But what if we were wrong? What if the barrier between us isn't biological? It's cultural. What if we've been choosing loneliness when we could have had friendship? Ambassador Sora stood up. You are speaking from emotion, not logic, Dr. Yuna. That proves my point about the danger humans represent. They have already compromised your professional judgment. No, Yuna said firmly. They've shown me that professional distance and personal connection aren't opposites. Humans work together better than most species I've studied precisely because they form emotional bonds. Their ships run more smoothly. Their teams solve problems faster. Their societies are more stable now than ever in their history because they learn to connect across their differences. She gestured to the data on the screen. We keep talking about the danger of connection. But what about the cost of isolation? How many scientific discoveries have we missed because researchers from different species won't collaborate deeply? How many conflicts have we failed to prevent because diplomats maintain emotional distance? How much joy and meaning have we sacrificed for the illusion of safety? Well, the chamber was silent. Yuna could see some council members considering her words. Others looked angry or afraid. Ambassador Sora called for a vote. The question before this council is simple. Given the compatibility readings, do humans pose a threat to galactic society, all in favor of implementing quarantine protocols for humanity and Earth? Yuna watched as, one by one, council members raised their hands or equivalent gestures. The vote wasn't even close. 17 members voted for quarantine. Only 3 voted against. The motion passes, Ambassador Sora declared. Effective immediately. All human individuals are to be confined to Earth's star system. No human vessels will be permitted to leave. A military blockade will be established. You can't do this, Yuna protested. Humans haven't done anything wrong. They exist in a way that threatens galactic stability, Sora said. Until we fully understand the implications of their compatibility and can establish appropriate safeguards, they must be contained. This is not a punishment. It is a precaution. Sora looked directly at Yuna. As for you, Dr. Yuna, you are hereby removed from your position. Your emotional compromise makes you unfit to serve as a medical officer. You are confined to quarters pending further investigation. Security officers moved toward Yuna. She looked up at the council members, at their faces showing fear and suspicion instead of curiosity. You're making a mistake, she said. Humans aren't the threat. Fear is the threat. Isolation is the threat. If we lock them away, we're not protecting ourselves. We're just proving that we're afraid of connection, afraid of change, afraid of being happy. Take her away, Ambassador Sora ordered. As the security officers led Yuna from the chamber, she saw Day in the observer section. His crystal body was glowing angry red. He met her eyes and nodded once. She understood. He would help her somehow. In the hallway outside, she saw Taeyang and the other humans being escorted toward the docking bay. They were being sent home. Back to Earth. Back to a blockade that would trap their entire species. Taeyang saw her and smiled sadly. It's okay, he called out. We're used to being misunderstood. We'll be patient. They'll come around eventually. That was so typically human. Still hopeful even when facing rejection, Yuna was escorted to her quarters. The door sealed behind her with a definitive click. She sat on her bed and looked at her hands, remembering the first time she had touched Taeyang and seen that impossible number, 97%. The bond meter had shown her what was possible. Now she just had to figure out how to make the galaxy see it too. She thought about Taeyang's smile and his eternal optimism. Maybe he was right. Maybe people would come around eventually, but Yuna didn't want to wait for eventually. She wanted to act now. She wanted to prove that humans weren't a threat. She wanted to show the galaxy what real connection looked like. She just needed a plan, and allies, and a lot of courage. Fortunately, Yuna was starting to learn courage from her human friends. Yuna had been confined to her quarters for 2 days, when Day appeared outside her door. He used his security clearance to override the lock. His crystal body was glowing a determined orange color. We're leaving, Day said simply. Now. What? How? There's a cargo ship departing in 20 minutes. I've arranged passage. Pack only what you need. Yuna grabbed her bond meter and a small bag of personal items. Where are we going? To find the humans, of course. They escaped the blockade 3 days ago. Did you really think humans would just accept being trapped? Yuna felt hope surge through her hearts. They escaped? How? Day's color shifted to amused yellow. Apparently humans are very good at improvising. They hacked the blockade communication systems, created false patrol routes, and slipped through in the confusion. Very clever. Very human. They made their way through the station's maintenance corridors. Day had planned the route carefully to avoid security cameras and patrol routes. As they walked, he explained what had been happening. The council announced the quarantine publicly. They expected everyone to support it. But instead, protests started immediately, especially among younger generations who have met humans and formed friendships. Really? Yuna felt her hearts lift. People are protesting? Thousands of them, across dozens of worlds. They're calling themselves the Bonded. They argue that connection is a right, not a privilege. That the council has no authority to prevent friendship. They reached the cargo bay. A small transport ship was loading supplies. The captain was a grizzled Vexari named Jiho, whose crystal body was scarred from decades of space travel. You the doctor? Jiho asked. Yes. Thank you for helping us. Thank the humans, not me. They paid in advance for passage for anyone who wanted to join their cause. Said they needed allies, and they'd trust anyone brave enough to show up. The ship lifted off smoothly. Once they were clear of the station and heading toward neutral space, Day showed Yuna something on his datapad. It was a video message. Spreading across the galactic network, the video showed Taeyang standing in front of a camera, with Minji, Hyun, and Kian beside him. "Hello, Galaxy," Taeyang said. "By now you've heard that humans are supposedly dangerous because we can form emotional bonds with other species. The Council has decided to quarantine humanity. They say it's for everyone's protection." He paused, and his expression turned sad. "We understand fear. We know what it's like to be afraid of differences. Earth's history is full of times when people feared and hated each other over small differences. We nearly destroyed ourselves because of that fear." Minji stepped forward. "But we survived by learning to connect, by choosing to understand instead of fear, by building bridges instead of walls. And when we came to the stars, we hoped to share what we learned." Hyun spoke next. "The Council sees our compatibility as a threat, but we see it as a gift. The galaxy has spent centuries keeping itself isolated. Everyone stays in their own bubble, maintaining professional distance, never truly knowing each other. And from what we've learned, many of you are lonely because of it." Kian finished the message. "We're not asking you to rebel against your governments. We're just asking you to question the rules that keep you separate. Ask yourself, why is connection considered dangerous? Why is friendship seen as a weakness? Why have we accepted loneliness as the price of civilization?" Taeyang came back on screen. "We're going to travel the galaxy, meeting anyone willing to meet us. We're going to prove that connection doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you stronger. Join us if you want, or don't. But either way, think about what kind of galaxy you want to live in. One where everyone is safe, but lonely? Or one where connection is possible, even if it's scary?" The video ended. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She wiped them away, surprised by her own reaction. "That message has been viewed 2 billion times in 3 days," Day said quietly. "It's causing quite a stir." Well, the journey took 5 days. They met the human ship in a neutral system called Haven's Rest. The ship was small and old, but it was filled with over 50 beings from dozens of different species. All of them had come to join the humans. Taeyang hugged Yuna when he saw her. It was an impulsive human gesture, and it startled her at first. But then she felt the warmth of it, the genuine happiness in the action. She hugged him back. "I'm so glad you came," Taeyang said. "We need all the help we can get." Over the next few weeks, the group traveled to different systems. They visited space stations, colonies, and planets. Everywhere they went, they simply talked to people. They shared meals, told stories, and formed friendships. Yuna watched as humans connected effortlessly with species that had never really known each other. She saw a human named Unji teaching a Vexari child to draw. She watched Taeyang have a long conversation with a Kreshvan soldier about the burden of duty. She observed Minji laughing with a group of Wicks who had never understood humor before, and she documented everything with her bond meter. She recorded the readings, took notes, gathered evidence. She was building a case, proving that human connection was real and beneficial. They discovered something important during their travels. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy had experienced a devastating war. Different species had fought over ideology and resources. Billions died. The survivors were traumatized. In response, the dominant species at the time had created something called the Protocol of Distance. It was a set of cultural and social rules designed to prevent emotional bonds between species. The theory was that if species couldn't form deep connections, they couldn't have the kind of passionate conflicts that led to war. It had worked. The galaxy had been stable for 3 millennia. But stability came at a cost. People were safe but isolated, protected but lonely. The protocol had become so ingrained in galactic culture that most beings didn't even realize they were following it. Humans had never been subject to the protocol. They still had their natural ability to bond. They represented what the galaxy had sacrificed for safety. "We're showing them what they lost," Day said one evening, as they watched a group of mixed species playing a human game called cards. Everyone was laughing and teasing each other in ways that would have been considered inappropriate before. "Do you think it's working?" Yuna asked. "Look around. These people are happy. Really happy. Maybe for the first time in their lives, they're experiencing genuine friendship across species. Yes, it's working, but not everyone was happy about it. The council declared the human ship and its followers to be outlaws. They sent military vessels to capture them. The group had to constantly move, staying ahead of pursuit. During one narrow escape, Yuna found herself sitting next to Taeyang in the ship's small medical bay. They were both exhausted. "Do you ever regret coming to the stars?" she asked. "Everything would be simpler if humans had just stayed on Earth." Taeyang smiled. "My ancestors asked the same question when they first left Africa to explore Earth, and when they first crossed oceans, and when they first went to space. Exploration is never simple, but it's always worth it. Even when people fear you, especially then, fear comes from misunderstanding. The only cure for misunderstanding is connection, so we keep trying to connect, even when it's hard." Yuna looked at her bond meter. She had tested hundreds of people during their travels. Every single person showed increased happiness and well-being after forming friendships with humans. The data was undeniable. "I'm going to present all of this evidence to the council," she said. "One more time. They have to listen now. We have proof. Are you sure? They might arrest you." "I'm sure. The truth is worth fighting for. You taught me that." Taeyang put his hand on hers. The bond meter, sitting nearby on the table, lit up with its familiar white glow. 97%. But now Yuna understood what that number really meant. It wasn't measuring compatibility. It was measuring possibility. The possibility of understanding, friendship, love, and connection. The possibility of a better galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber looked the same as it had 6 weeks ago. The same circular room. The same rising tiers of seats. The same Ambassador Sora, sitting in judgment. But everything else had changed. This time, Yuna wasn't alone. Behind her stood hundreds of beings from dozens of species, humans and aliens together, all of them calling themselves the Bonded. They filled the observer sections and spilled out into the hallways. Security had tried to limit access, but there were too many of them. Outside the building, thousands more protested. The news feeds showed demonstrations on over 40 planets, young people and old, from every corner of the galaxy, all demanding the same thing: the right to connect. Ambassador Sora looked tired. Her green scales seemed duller than before. "Dr. Yuna," Sora said, "you were ordered to remain in confinement. Instead, you fled the station and joined the human fugitives. You have violated multiple regulations." "I have," Yuna agreed. "And I would do it again. Because I was following something more important than regulations. I was following the truth." She activated the display screen. Charts and graphs appeared, but this time there were hundreds of them. Data from every planet and station they had visited. "I have spent 6 weeks conducting the largest compatibility study in galactic history. I have tested over 3,000 individuals across 47 species. The results are consistent. Humans show high compatibility with everyone, but more importantly, beings who form friendships with humans report significant increases in happiness, creativity, and overall life satisfaction." She pulled up medical scans. These are brain scans from volunteers who agreed to be monitored before and after forming friendships with humans. Notice the increased activity in the areas associated with joy, meaning, and social connection. These people are not being manipulated. They are simply experiencing what connection feels like for the first time. Council member Vask clicked his mandibles. "This proves nothing. Emotional manipulation often feels good to the victim." "Then test me," Yuna said. She held up her bond meter. "I've spent weeks with humans, If they had manipulated me, there would be evidence. Scan my brain. Test my judgment. You'll find I'm thinking more clearly now than I was before. She looked around the chamber. The real question is why we're so afraid of connection. What are we protecting ourselves from? Ambassador Sora spoke quietly. We're protecting ourselves from pain, Dr. Yuna. From loss. From the kind of passionate conflicts that nearly destroyed our ancestors. 3,000 years ago. I know about the protocol of distance, Yuna said. I know it was created after the Great War to prevent species from bonding too deeply. But that protocol was meant to be temporary. A healing period after trauma. It was never supposed to become permanent. She gestured to the people behind her. These beings prove that connection doesn't lead to conflict. It prevents it. People who understand each other don't go to war. People who care about each other find ways to solve problems peacefully. Taeyang stepped forward. May I speak, Ambassador? Sora looked surprised but nodded. You said you're afraid of pain, Taeyang said. I understand that. Humans know pain very well. We've hurt each other in countless ways throughout our history. We've lost people we loved to war, disease, and accidents. Connection does make you vulnerable to pain. He paused, looking around the chamber. But it also gives life meaning. Yes, you might get hurt if you care about someone. But isn't that better than never caring at all? Isn't feeling something, even pain, better than feeling nothing? Minji stepped forward next. My grandmother survived a terrible war on Earth. She watched friends die. She experienced horrible pain. After the war, she could have chosen to never love anyone again, to protect herself from more loss. But she didn't. She chose to love anyway. She got married, had children, made friends, built a community. And yes, she experienced more loss in her life, but she also experienced joy, laughter, and connection. She died happy, surrounded by people who loved her. She always said the pain was worth it because the alternative was being alone. Hyun spoke. You can't have meaningful happiness without the risk of meaningful pain. That's just how life works. The protocol of distance didn't protect you from pain. It just made all your pain meaningless because you had no one to share it with. The chamber was silent. Yuna could see council members looking uncomfortable, thoughtful, uncertain. Ambassador Sora stood up slowly. 3,000 years ago, my ancestors helped create the protocol of distance. They believed they were saving the galaxy from itself, and maybe they did. Maybe we needed that time to heal, to become stable, to learn to coexist peacefully. She looked at Yuna, then at the humans, then at the crowd of mixed species behind them. But maybe you're right. Maybe the emergency is over, and we've forgotten to stop living in fear. She turned to address the full council. I propose we vote on 2 measures. First, whether to lift the quarantine on humanity. Second, whether to officially dissolve the protocol of distance, making it optional rather than mandatory. Councilmember Vask stood up. This is too fast. We need more time to study the implications. We've had 3,000 years, Sora said firmly. And these people have given us 6 weeks of intensive study. The data is clear. Human connection is not harmful. Our fear of connection is what's harmful. Day activated his communication crystal from the observer section. If I may add my voice, I have personally experienced the benefits of human friendship. I have laughed more in 6 weeks than in the previous 10 years. My work has improved. My understanding of the universe has deepened. I am not compromised. I am enhanced. Similar testimonies came from the crowd. A Vexari mother spoke about how her daughter had made friends with a human and was thriving. A Kreshvan soldier talked about learning empathy from humans and becoming better at his job because of it. A Wix philosopher described finally understanding emotions after bonding with humans. The vote was called. This time, it was much closer. 12 votes to lift the quarantine, 8 against. The measure passed. The vote on the protocol of distance was even closer. 11 for dissolution, 9 against. But it passed. The chamber erupted in noise. Some council members were angry. Others looked relieved. A few were crying. Ambassador Sora raised her hand for silence. Effective immediately, the quarantine on humanity is lifted. All humans are free to travel the galaxy. Additionally, the protocol of distance is no longer mandatory. Species and individuals may choose their own level of emotional engagement with others. The Council recommends gradual implementation of these changes with appropriate support systems for those who struggle with increased social connection. She looked directly at Yuna. Dr. Yuna, your medical license is restored. In fact, I would like to offer you a new position. The Council is creating an interspecies cultural exchange center. We need someone to lead it. Someone who understands both the science and the value of connection. Yuna felt tears on her face. I accept. Taeyang was grinning. The other humans were hugging each other, and anyone nearby. The whole chamber was filled with beings from different species, embracing, shaking hands, touching tentacles, or sharing whatever gestures of connection their bodies allowed. Yuna walked up to Ambassador Sora. Thank you for having the courage to change your mind. Sora's scales rippled with an emotion Yuna had never seen in her before. It looked like relief. Thank you for having the courage to show me I was wrong. That's harder than staying convinced you're right. Over the next few months, the galaxy changed slowly but surely. The Interspecies Cultural Exchange Center opened on the old medical station Epsilon 7. Beings from across the galaxy came to learn about connection, to form friendships, to experience what it meant to truly know someone from another species. Not everyone was comfortable with the changes. Some species and individuals chose to maintain the old protocols. That was their right. But many others embraced the new possibilities. Humans became known as the Bridgers, a species that had reconnected a divided galaxy. But they always insisted they were just showing others what was already possible. The potential for connection had always existed. Humans had just reminded everyone it was there. Yuna spent her days teaching other species about emotional bonds, running compatibility studies, and helping people navigate the scary but wonderful world of genuine friendship. She was happy in a way she had never known was possible. One evening, she sat in her new office with Taeyang. They had become close friends over the months. He visited often, helping with the center's programs and sharing human insights into social connection. Can I tell you something? Yuna asked. Of course. That first day, when the bond meter lit up, I was terrified. I thought it meant something was broken. Either the device, or you, or me, or the entire universe. And now? Now I know what was really broken was our understanding. We thought isolation was safety, and connection was danger. We had it backwards. Taeyang picked up the bond meter from her desk. He pressed it against his hand and hers. It lit up with that familiar white glow. 97%. You know what I think this number really means? He said. What? Possibility. Not just compatibility. The possibility of understanding each other despite our differences. The possibility of friendship across impossible distances. The possibility of finding family in unexpected places. Yuna smiled. I like that. Possibility. She looked out the window at the station. Ships from dozens of worlds were docked there. Inside, beings from across the galaxy were learning to connect, to laugh, to share, to care. The bond meter had shown her an impossible reading. But it turned out the only thing that was impossible was staying isolated once you realized connection was possible. Humans hadn't changed the galaxy by force or manipulation. They'd changed it by being themselves. By showing others what friendship looked like. By proving that vulnerability was strength and connection was courage. And they'd done it all with something simple. Kindness, openness, and the belief that everyone deserved to be understood. Yuna touched the bond meter one more time. The numbers didn't matter anymore. She had learned that connection couldn't be measured. Only experienced. And the experience was worth everything. The galaxy had spent 3,000 years afraid of pain. Now it was learning to embrace possibility instead. And it all started because a bond meter lit up when a curious doctor touched the hand of a friendly human and discovered that impossible things were possible after all.